What's up, sons? It's Blind Rod with Son of a Tech once again, and today we're going to address the elephant in the room. GPU mining is dead. Of course, we're going to be talking about all cryptocurrency mining and the lack of profitability across the board due to rising electricity costs in the United States, especially for residential rates. And then, of course, the depression of price in the cryptocurrency market due to the halving cycle. Or really, could it be other macroeconomic factors affecting it as well? Let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome back, everyone. So to start things off, what I want to show you guys here is the average increase in electricity rates in the US. As you can see here, if we take a look at the average electricity cost, basically according to Google's AI right now, as of May 2024, the residential rates have gone up 1.7%. And over the past year, up to 15 cents per kilowatt hour. For commercial, it's a little cheaper at 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you go down to industrial, it's at 8.45 cents per kilowatt hour, which is really where you'll start seeing all of your mining farms come in, or your hosting facilities, large mining farms, and so on. There's a lot of other strategies that can be utilized to get this price down, but it does basically require a lot of capital expenditure. In my particular case, to give you guys an idea, I had started out back in 2020 at my location in New Braunfels, Texas, which is now shut down, at 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour, and it went as high as 16 cents per kilowatt hour in 2022, and then came back down to around 11 cents, where now they've also added an additional increase once again of 30%, bringing it up higher and higher, making it unprofitable for me to continue to mine in that particular location. I had a 3-year lease, and I did complete out my lease and remained basically profitable, albeit very low, thanks to some strategies that I utilized outside of your traditional mining calculators, known as speculative mining, which I covered in very stark detail, technical details on my locals at sonofatech.locals.com, because it requires a lot more work to speculative mine than it does to just set it and forget it on a particular cryptocurrency, like we saw with Ethereum. This particular cycle, compared to the previous cycle, has a big bombshell in there, which is, of course, the Ethereum move to proof of stake, which took a big chunk of the revenue for GPU miners away and basically put all the pressure on other GPU mineable algorithms. Another compounding factor is a trend in new layer 1 proof of work projects moving to basically ASICs. Everything that's been popping off here recently, from kaspa all the way to Radiant and Alephium, have had on their roadmap to adopt ASIC miners. Now, there's a huge argument surrounding that. I have a bias because I am a GPU miner, to be clear, but I still do think that there is a valid argument for GPUs being more decentralized, especially for newer projects. And I'm not a fan of ASICs. But even if you are on the ASICs mining end of things, your capital expenditures are much higher and your revenues are still much lower than they were previously, making that even difficult to obtain basically a profitable status on your mining farm. And we can see that if we head on over to any mining calculators here at hashrate.no. If you take a look at GPUs and we put in the average residential rate for the United States, which is going to be a majority of home miners, we are basically unprofitable on anything across the board, except for a 4070 Ti on ZIL hash, making 1 penny a day after a revenue of 49 cents a day just running that thing. Now, of course, you could say, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mine, pay out of pocket, and hold the rest. That's fine unless you're trying to scale. And you really have to start deciding between like scaling and then, of course, mining. And that can be a bit of a problem. because if you are wanting to be in a good position to be competitive on anything in the case of a bull run, taking your money and putting it into the actual power costs right now only gets you the cryptocurrency, which you could also just buy if that's your strategy. And you will not have the equipment to ramp up and scale later on in the case of a bull run. So the other option or the other strategy, which is what I personally do, is I purchase the equipment and I put it in storage. In this case, I am basically betting on the markets going back up and then being able to be profitable with the amount of equipment I have and not spending any of my extra money on actual power itself. Those are a few strategies you can utilize here as it pertains to GPUs. Basically, buy more GPUs while they're actually available on the market so that you don't end up in a position where you're paying scalper prices when or if a bull run presents itself later on down the line and GPUs become as profitable as they were in previous cycles. This gets a little bit better with your CPUs in profitability, and you can check out Rabid Mining's channel for all your CPU mining goodness, where we do see profits on Epic CPUs or even the 7950 models of anywhere from 40 cents after power to 90 cents a day after power. Of course, the big problem here is scaling once again with CPUs is a lot more difficult than scaling with GPUs because now you require a single motherboard and in a lot of cases a separate individual power supply per motherboard. Now, there are some adapters that you can power multiple motherboards with basically a single power supply. There's options across the board depending on which companies you go with, like Parallel Miner has some breakout boards that can support you there. It's still a lot more equipment needed to CPU mine just in general and a lot more to manage. So keep that in mind. I think for density purposes, the more powerful CPU you can purchase is going to be a little bit more beneficial than multiple CPUs at a lower range. But you could implement your basic strategy here and still on a residential average electricity rate maintain profitability. In most cases, this has been true throughout this bear market. And the best thing I think that is notable here is most speculative mines start on CPU, then get a GPU miner, then get an FPGA, and then get ASICs. So you can still participate within the speculative mining side of things. Most recently, of course, Zealous being one of those things where CPUs were extremely efficient, and you can capitalize on that. CPUs are looking like the best hash rate profitability calculator option out there right now, albeit with some downsides on the density of your farm, etc., which you should take into consideration. Now, there are the FPGAs that are out, and they are really doing about as bad as GPUs outside of the Osprey E300, which was running as high as $10,000. This was a unit that I did get in for review. I advised against purchasing it. There's a lot of reasons why FPGAs have a lot of problems, primarily due to the fact that it requires a bit stream to mine, and bit streams are proprietary, which means you don't have access to it without some sort of exorbitant developer fee for the bit stream or inside knowledge on how to program your own bit streams. I think if you know how to program your own bit streams, etc., there actually are probably even better options still for you, like creating your own GPU miner early on for, whatever X coin. As you've seen, this is possible because people that have experience with bit streams like Whitefire and all of those guys in K1 did end up building out GPU miners for other cryptocurrency projects down the line. So if you have that capability, you're probably already a step ahead on speculative mining, and maybe you focus on that as opposed to purchasing FPGAs in this particular case. The idea was supposed to be along the lines of, the efficiency of like closer to ASICs while also having flexibility of GPUs for FPGAs, but that never panned out due to the availability of the software, specifically the bit streams in this case. And I think it's a dangerous game to get into unless you're a developer or have connections to a developer to help you through this. And even then, the profitability doesn't look to be that great. Availability of parts is a lot more difficult as well. So just keep all of that in mind. But FPGAs aren't profitable either. Moving on to ASICs, if we do take a look at the current 15 cents per kilowatt hour at the average residential rates in the United States, things do look good with the Antminer AL1 and AL1 Pro showing a profit of $300 per day. But there's more to this than meets the eye. If you recall, the previous launch from Bitmain most recently was the KS5, which was showing similar numbers to what the AL1 is right now, but now has dropped all the way down to the $20 per day range. The issue here is that these particular units are extremely expensive as well. So if you are going to purchase these and you don't get them shipped to you on time, you can end up in a very precarious situation. An example here would even be most recently the AL boxes from Goldshell, which are just now beginning to be shipped. And while previously they were showing incredible profit numbers, are now showing around $13 per day. Actually, I think it's the AL0 to be specific that is getting shipped right now. And as you can see, it's at $7.82 per day when it was much closer to $30 or $40 a day previously. So the game is very quick and it's a churn and burn. And because we are dealing with companies that mine on these units prior to shipping them, by the time you get the old unit, they've released a new unit and they're mining with it, increasing the difficulty on the network. And you're stuck with a unit that's ROI never. In some cases, if you do get these units at the right time, you can maintain profitability and pay it off in time, but this isn't always the case. There is something to be said if you are able to scale to the point of being able to purchase a large amount of these units at a single time and work directly with Bitmain, that you can be in an advantageous position. But most of those people are going to be already kind of in operation, such as like Marathon Digital and so on, who did purchase a ton of kaspa ASICs and not holding as much kaspa as people were expecting them to hold, unfortunately, thereby driving the price down and making Cedra now more profitable on the Antminer KS5 Pros, etc. There is still like the elephant in the room of like, well, what do we do? And I mentioned it earlier, and I think a lot of people should consider some different strategies. What I have been seeing here recently, especially on those used gaming PC YouTube channels where they go out and buy used GPUs and used equipment to build gaming PCs, like Nerd on a Budget, almost all of the used GPU purchases are going through basically ex-GPU miners, which means we finally have hit that point where people are getting out of GPU mining and selling off their GPUs. This is very good news because I think for us to recycle and get into the next bull run, you have to have a certain amount of people give up. And people are starting to give up, which is bullish in my humble opinion, because that means less competition, which means more profits for me later on down the line. So you have essentially three different things that you could do right now to plan for the next bull run or to participate within GPU mining. If you want to continue mining, you can basically cover all of your power costs and run your GPUs and hold all of the cryptocurrency. That would be the number one thing that you could do with the current equipment you have, and is a viable option, and is something that Red Panda Mining did during the previous bear market, which paid off greatly for him. And then the second option is to just purchase the cryptocurrency in hopes that it goes up. You will have no mining hardware to capitalize on that in the future, though. And while the price of the coin might go up, you're locked into a single coin, which could put you in a precarious situation because maybe that coin doesn't pump while others do. And if you had GPUs or ASICs or FPGAs or CPUs to mine those particular coins that do go up, you're a lot more flexible. So I'm not a big fan of purchasing the cryptocurrency itself, but that is something that you could do. Finally, what you could do is purchase the silicon and put it in storage so that you have basically scalability for your mining power later on. And in this particular case, this is what I do, but I wouldn't recommend it to everyone because you will have to pay storage costs in general. You will have to come up with the money later on to power on everything, and it can be difficult to find places to power on in the case that you have all of the equipment, but you don't have the infrastructure to power it on. So it's a little bit more risky. But the worst case scenario in that one is you can sell that equipment to other individuals that are now experiencing the inability to fill up the amount of power they have due to shortages of the mining equipment itself. Finally, to supplement all of this, if you are either just buying equipment to scale up later on, or you are basically mining at a loss and covering power costs out of pocket, in those two scenarios, you do have the option to take the opportunities to speculative mine and have potential to make a lot of money even during a bear market, where we have seen people that mined millions of kaspa with GPUs and CPUs before it really took off. All of those people are in a very good position. This also happened with a plethora of other cryptocurrencies. Even if they didn't perform that well, still ended up being profitable and being able to take care of mining costs at the end of the day, allowing you to continue to mine while also still, covering power costs. That is going to be a difficult sideline kind of backseat option for you. But if you want to learn about that, I suggest going through my Linux guides, which I have both on locals and here on YouTube. Get familiar with command line, that sort of thing, and you'll be good to go. There is, of course, the final option, which I have done in the past, which is just give up, sell everything, sit on the sidelines, don't mine, don't buy any cryptocurrency, don't do anything. And in that case, well, guess what? If you don't play, you can't win. So that's the downside. If you're going to get out all the way, well, there's no opportunity for you in the future. And you will just be FOMOing back in and not being in a good position, just like you were maybe in the previous bull run cycle where you were paying, exorbitant costs on GPUs trying to catch up to everyone else. Whereas if you had purchased those GPUs during the bear market, you would have been in a much better position. So there it is. GPU mining is dead. It's never coming back and there's no hope. That is what most people would have you believe. I have heard this before, so it doesn't affect me as much. I'm curious what you guys think. Are you selling some GPUs? Are you holding GPUs? Are you mining and covering costs? Are you speculative mining? Are you doing nothing and just holding the equipment? What is your strategy? Are you buying and holding the cryptocurrency? I think participation is key to be successful at the end of the day. So don't give up yet. If you really believe in cryptocurrency being in our future, then maintain participation at some level. If you are not able to afford any equipment or any cryptocurrency or anything like that at this time, I understand that, but you can still participate. You could learn to code. Hashtag learn to code. That's a good one. That is something you could do, and you could learn more about cryptography. You could learn more about smart contracts. You could learn more Solidity, Rust, whatever it is. You could participate in some form or fashion and not spend any money and be in a position where you can still capitalize with your skills over your assets, which is kind of the way you build assets. At the end of the day, you build assets by utilizing your skills to earn an income to purchase the assets. It's really that simple at the end of the day. And a lot of it's up here, and I fail up here a lot. So I understand if that's happened to you, but just keep that in mind. Use your skills to generate income to purchase assets. That's the way it goes. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like, comment, subscribe, and notification bells down below. And I will see you next Tuesday.